All right. Welcome to the inaugural episode of us reviewing stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake, which recently just came out for the PS5 with the Integrate DLC, but obviously the game itself came out a little over a year ago, I think April of last year or something like that.
Was going to say it came out at the beginning of this whole COVID thing.
Pretty much, yeah, or just shortly after it. Yeah, after it started. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I didn't see that one coming.
Well, my work was like, we're closing for 2 weeks. And I was like, great. Final
Hmm.
Fantasy VII Remake comes out like in a few days.
Oh, I'll have plenty of time to play this.
Like, yeah. And then I beat it in a week, and then we stayed locked in for like another 6 months.
You should have let it stretch out just a little bit longer,
Yeah, it got. I mean, it was a good game, but it weren't 6 months worth of gameplay.
maybe. Yeah, exactly. So really quick, I'm gonna open the drink. So you recommended I check out from your home country, or well, more me asking you multiple times, what beer should I get from your home country? And after looking through the aisles, I was disappointed to not find much. But you did at least mention the name of this one, the Old Speckled Hen. So that's what I'm gonna be
Yeah.
drinking. And I'm gonna be opening it because this thing, I guess I'll put it close to the mic. I swear this thing is louder than shit every time I open it. All right, hold on. All right.
To celebrate Final Fantasy VII Remake coming out at the beginning of Corona.
Now,
And
bring it
drinking
full
drinks.
circle all the way back around. Yeah, we got a real
Mhm.
international show here. England and Mexican beer here.
And someone from Ohio.
Yeah, and someone from Ohio, exactly. So we're a real multicultural organization for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Start us off. Go for it.
So you never played Final Fantasy VII, the original?
Sort of. I was going to get the remake because it looked great and everything, but up to that point, I had not played it, and so about 2 weeks before the remake came out, I played the original version on the Switch with like the quality of life improvements where you can like fast forward and have like I don't know, is like basically God mode essentially where you don't health
Yeah.
doesn't go down, all that sort of stuff. So that was my first and only experience playing that.
The Playmobil version, where everyone looks like they're from Playmobil.
It has a charm to it. I mean, I get I there were limitations, of course, of the PlayStation, but it is so funny, like, and jarring going from that to like the cutscenes that actually don't look terrible, but yeah.
So it was my favorite game of all time,
Hmm.
and still is. Okay, it's one of those games that go back in your bedroom when you're 8 years old.
Yeah.
It's summer. Your mum and dad are arguing downstairs, and how does it translate for someone who's playing it for the first time now?
Well, so also, and I mean, you know this by now, but just to reiterate for people who have not seen some of my streams when I rant a little bit about this, especially during Yakuza, the most recent one, I'm not the biggest JRPG fan, like which is unfortunate because I love most JRPG like settings. I think the stories are usually pretty unique, and I think like if it was like a TV show or a movie, like oh, I would be for this 100%. But like the turn-based style games, I just they just drag on too much. I hate grinding. Uh, I'm just not really a fan of it as a genre in general, which sucks because I would like to
Mhm.
enjoy them more, but I'm normally not into them. So that already was like working against it in its favor from the get go.
Well, in the lead up to the remake as well, one of the things that I really thought about, I was like, this story is well ahead of its time.
Mhm.
We're talking about corporations being far too powerful. They're talking about the environment,
Mhm.
uh, TSD,
And this came out what,
um,
96 was it? 97?
97, 98.
Yeah, or something like
Yeah.
that.
And like all those topics are probably more relevant today. Do you
Mhm.
remember before games got political? Um,
No, what? They weren't always like that? What are you talking about?
no, no. Um, yeah, no. A lot of that stuff when I played it, it was like, wow, this. You think about it as a kid when you're playing it, obviously, but you're like,
Sure.
whoa, this is a lot more relevant today. I ever had really thought about because
Right.
I say it's my favorite game ever, but I've probably not played it played it when they re-released it on PS4
Hmm.
5 years ago, something like that.
Okay, so you didn't play it like before the remake to kind of compare or anything?
No, because I know that game like the back of my hand
Okay,
anyway.
yeah.
Like I know it so well that I'm amazed I've seen a naked lady before. Like,
You didn't propose to your
like
wife saying, "Hey, I know this," like the back of my
Yep. Hey, check it out. I learned the bass line from Final Fantasy II.
hands. Where I'm not gonna play most of the other Final Fantasies, but Seven is like such a prolific game in like the canon of video games, and it was something missing that I just haven't had in my life. I'm like, I have to play it purely from like a curiosity perspective, but
it's
also
like Star Wars.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly, exactly. It's like if you love video games, you have to play it at some point. Even if you played the remake, you have to go back and at least try the original one, I would think.
More than 200 animators and programmers. A multi-million-dollar production.
Yeah, especially if you have a curiosity with like historical perspective and like the foundations of certain genres or directors or authors. Like it's the same thing with Christopher Nolan. I feel like you can watch his most last 4 or 5 movies, but like it's interesting to see like, oh, what was his first movie, and see like how that then inspired everything he did. Or not just Christopher Nolan, but like any director. But like I did that more recently, where I watched his first couple movies because I never had watched them, and it's like yeah, they're low budget, they're not bajillion dollar blockbusters, but like the seeds of what he would do later on, you could see it. And I personally like seeing stuff like that. So,
I mean, it's also when you read about the history of how they made the original, it's kind of crazy because
hmm,
they essentially made the game in 9 months. None of
which
you
is
knew that.
nuts. No, no, I didn't know that. Mm.
Yeah. Which, like, when you think all the side stuff, all this stuff, like 9 months nowadays, that's not going to get you much of anything.
Right, and for a scope of what that game is, I mean, across however many discs, however many hours it takes, and obviously all the side quests you can do. Like, so when I played, so kind of coming back to when I played it, like I said, I played it on the Switch, and a good chunk of the time I'd use the fast forward thing, just because some of the battles dragged on a little bit longer. But even doing that, it took me, I don't know, 15 to 20 hours probably to beat it. And granted, I did mostly focusing on the main story because that's all I was mainly curious. I just wanted to see the story, and I'm glad I did. So like I will say, I think coming back to your question, someone playing it for basically the first time now, how does it hold up? I think from a story perspective, I think it definitely holds up. It's really cool. I still think it's unique. Like it's a cool thing to go back to. But obviously, once again, the gameplay is going to be dependent on the person. So I don't think I would ever play it again, frankly. But like I'm glad I played it at least once, even though it was a cheating method, I guess.
Yeah, one of my big when they like announced the remake, and before they sort of said it was going to be episodic, I was like, listen, they can't remake it because scopes of games back then,
Right.
you can't do a one-for-one remake today that scale. Can you imagine how huge that game would be?
Right.
People think The Witcher is crazy.
Right. Yeah, so it is kind of nuts. I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020, but when people announced for the or when Square announced for the remake, oh, it's only just the first. It's not even just the first disc. It's like the first part of the first disc from the original. If I'm remembering correctly, right? Or does I don't know if it crosses.
So it is literally probably about 5 to 10 hours into the game, depending on how
Mm,
quick you are.
right,
Which
exactly.
I would say roughly is around halfway point of the first disc.
Yeah, exactly. So like once again, hindsight 2020. So it's like yeah, kind of what you just said. It's like yeah, of course they're not going to remake the entire effing game. That would be insane to do unless they've been working on this for like 30 years at this freaking point because it would be ridiculous. But I know a lot of people got pissed when they announced that they
Wait
weren't.
a minute, are you telling me the internet got angry about
I know. Yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, hold on. I know it's hard to believe, and I'm pulling your leg
They're
here.
very rational people.
There was only a couple of death threats, so it was bad. It was all right.
Oh, how else are you going to get your point across?
Exactly. So yeah, and I think the other thing with I mean we'll get I guess into the remake in a second, but like I think the fact that I only played it recently and one time and I didn't have that personal attachment made me care less about the story changes that they did in the remake. But granted I know I'm probably in the minority on that one because I'm not the biggest fan, but I could detach from it, I guess is what I'm saying.
The issues that I have with the remake are probably all story related. I think we can segue into the remake.
Yeah, I
now.
was gonna say, unless there's
Uh,
anything else you want to bring up about your past with the original, but yeah, if not, we can go right into it.
Well, one of my funniest stories actually has to do with the original, which was
Go for it.
so it came out in 97, 98. I was like 6. It's crazy to think I played that game at 6 years old and
Yep.
beat it because like
Right.
I've met 6-year-olds and they're not very smart.
Have you ever had a dream that you had you?
Is that actually true, or is this the sign of us becoming old and like you know what I mean? Like,
No, I tell you what I think it is. My theory is we just didn't have much to do back then. You kind of forced yourself through
Right.
stuff
exactly.
because Scooby-Doo was on at 3:30 to 4. That was it for TV for you.
Jinkies.
I used to write down words that I didn't understand.
Oh yeah.
Take them to my mother. Be like, what does this word say?
hmm
I could understand the story. And my school were like, oh, Mark's very good at like reading out loud in class. And when I told them it was because I was reading on video games, suddenly it was bad that I could read well.
Yeah, right. This bad influence from overseas. How
Yeah.
dare you?
Like, oh no. We thought it was just like learning well, not video games. Right. And I think my mum got concerned when I was asking her what the word terrorist meant. No, so moving into the remake,
Yeah.
I remember got announced at E3 2015. I was very excited. For years, I sort of said I didn't want a remake. Like, there's no point.
Well, I mean, if we're going way
Square.
back, technically, it was a PS3 technical demo. That one
no,
E3, right?
Before that, Square once said during the PS2 games,
hmm
PS2 days, they were going to release 7, 8, and 9 as remakes on the PS2.
Oh, okay, nice.
Release the press release and then never mention it ever
Whoops!
again.
don't look here. We're gonna sweep this one under the
Yeah.
rug. Got it.
Yeah. And then they did the technical demo, and then
Okay.
we had we also in the PS2 days we had some of the spin-offs.
Right. And then the movie,
Things
of
like that.
course, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. But for
yeah.
this iteration of the remake, to your point, yeah, 2015, right?
I had kind of been like, if they did it, it's not going to be as good. Like,
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Was that the same year as Shenmue 3 Kickstarter also?
yeah,
Yeah, because I remember that was like a big E3. Like, holy shit. Yeah, it's coming
that,
black.
Shenmue 3, Last Guardian,
Right.
that stuff.
Okay. Yes, it's flooding back.
I was up at like 3 a.m. back in England watching it because it was on at like 10 at night here. And that is probably like you see all these E3 reaction videos where people are like,
Right.
and that was probably the most I've ever got to
The single time.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Not
Like,
quite that reaction, but slightly more.
Yeah, I didn't throw a chair through a window or anything.
Not dedicated.
But
Nice.
no.
Good.
so and then typed, and then I was like, okay, let's see if they can do it. Because Square, as much as I still defend them, they've not hitting it out the park as they were used to even.
Sure.
As it got closer, I was really excited. Everything I was looking at was really good.
hmm
And I got the game. I loved 95% of it.
All right.
Then the 5%, the end.
hmm So not even just the story; it's really just the last part of the story.
Well, also the last 2 chapters.
Or just yeah.
Yeah. Because like when you're in the Shinra building and they're just like it drags on for so long. That is like an hour to 2 hours in the original. Felt like you were in that building for like 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's been 84 years.
Well, they got to drag it
And
out in the remake a little bit.
Yeah, where they do that thing where they're like, I have to run calibrations, fight this enemy.
Yeah. God damn it.
But then also the plot ghosts.
Jinkies.
I think it's when the plate's about to fall,
hmm
the ghosts appeared. It's like, I think they're making sure you follow the path of the original. I think that's where it clicked with me. That's what was happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Because at that point, also not much had changed in the game or the plot. But then, like, literally, the end of the game just makes nothing seem like it was important.
Also really quick, if it's not obvious, we'll probably be talking about some spoilers. So if you haven't played through it,
It's more a discussion.
yeah, oh, for sure. It's just obviously
Yeah.
given that we've both finished it, we might be mentioning a couple of things that happen. So
Yeah.
FYI, don't get too upset. Not too many death threats this time, please. And I guess the other thing to mention, of course, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the director of this game is it the director of Kingdom Hearts, or he was involved with it somehow?
Tetsuya Nomura, yeah.
Okay.
I also love Kingdom Hearts, and I defended all of those games for ages because everyone was like, "This plot is complicated." What I always said with Kingdom Hearts was like, "It's not complicated if you've played the games." People are like, "Oh, I only played 1, 2, and 3, and it didn't make sense." I'm like, "No, like again, I only watched the Avengers movies, and it didn't make sense. I didn't watch Iron Man 3 or Captain America 2."
Sure.
But then he added time travel, and it just got stupid.
Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985.
But it's the overcomplicating things. When you play the original, like it's a long, but it's a pretty simple story. Big bad company who rule the world. You exploit the planet for profit. I'm up against a guy who superhuman, wants to destroy the planet. Kind of, you get in this sort of weird triangle where all sides are fighting each other. But then they're like, right, but what if we added time travel, ghosts?
Jinkies.
It's not a remake at that point. This is more a reimagining.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great word for it, because it's at what point do you stop calling it a remake? And I don't know if that was the plan all along, and then something happened where they decided to start going off the rails with the story, and they're like, well, we can't call it anything else. And I mean, I feel like if you called it Final Fantasy VII Reimagining, that might be weird. And so, like, remakes...
This is Square Enix.
I guess that's fair.
It's frustrating because here's the thing, like, John who loved it, I said to you at the beginning, like, it came to a point where I was like, I don't want a remake. They go, we're making a remake. I'm like, oh, okay. And they win me over in all the marketing. And they're like, look, do you remember this? Isn't this amazing? Don't this look good? I'm going, yeah. And they go, well, it's not fucking that.
Gotcha. Pull the rug right out.
Ryan Johnston does.
So a couple things. Like I said, I haven't played Kingdom Hearts before, and the fact that I'm not that attached to the original, to me, I'm like, kind of relatively speaking, coming into it fresh. And this is me saying, like, after I've beat it, I'm like, yeah, there was some weird shit going on here, but I'm fine. Like, I don't know, thought it was neat, I guess. But I could very much see it getting even more stupidly convoluted if it goes, like, way too off the rails, potentially.
The thing as well is, like, there's a line at the end of the game where, like, Red 13, where you see flashes at the end of the original, and he's like, this is what happens if we lose. I'm like, so you're telling me that for 22 years I've sat here with the wrong ending?
Right, exactly. Yeah, you got the bad ending 22 years ago.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess I should.
That's the ending. You're the reimagining.
Right. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's the Spider-Man meme. Like, wait a minute, that's you. But I guess I should. So the other thing I should also mention, because I wanted to get caught up on the lore, even though I immediately forgot all of it. So after I beat the original, I also watched Advent Children, or I rented it. And then I watched, like, a brief story synopsis of Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus. But I'm just going to be honest, I don't remember, like, 99% of it. But I think the big thing was in regard, if I remember correctly, especially from Crisis Core, it was Zack being, like, a more important part of the story. And then the end of this remake seemed to, like, bring him back into the fold again, basically, right?
Yeah, that's also going forward where the story, it looks like it's going to get weird. It seems very fan fiction-y. Like, it kind of feels like, oh, but what if all those characters didn't die?
Yeah.
Like, because he's not the only one. The end of the game also shows you a few other people that didn't die. Died in the original, right? No one dies in this of consequence other than President Schumer. You drop a plate that's like 15 miles long
Right.
in a village. A few people come out like they're bad guys in the A-team and go,
Yeah, they're, like, wiping off the dust. That was a
like,
close
oh,
one.
well, That was a mild inconvenience.
Right. And and granted this isn't just with respect to Final Fantasy, but that's in general with storytelling, like if you don't have consequences, it makes everything pointless. Like there's why do the things that you did if it doesn't matter? And and if they're going to go this multiple timeline split where like the original was the bad ending, then I guess that's their solution. But like that it just cheapens it, I guess.
Don't worry, nobody dies in this story. They just get really big boo-boos.
Everyone's happy. He's in hospital. He just fell off a building that was 15 stories high.
Just put a Band-Aid.
He's got a bandage. He's got a bandage on his head. He's fine.
Give him a lollipop.
Right? Yeah, but it's frustrating because it's more the sitting here and thinking, where do they go from here? We're gonna just filter this further and further and further. And as I said, I love 95% of this game, and I think what's frustrating about this is it's the last 5% is all you think about when you think about the game.
Well, yeah, with any book or movie you see, you're more often than not going to remember, did they stick that landing? Or especially after like a long TV show of multiple seasons of build-up. And like, granted, I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but like people now remember the ending versus the multiple seasons that led up to it, it seems like. And I feel like it's kind of the same situation.
Oh, this is when I played the DLC. It's like, yeah, I'm just not that enthusiastic about where it goes. Like, obviously, I'm going to play it. I'm a huge Final Fantasy VII fan. Then, when I had the controller in my hand, I was playing it. I was having an amazing time. That's great. I love the world. I'm doing all this. I'm doing all that. And you put the controller down, you walk away from it. All you think about the stuff they've messed up.
They just can't escape it. So yeah, I was gonna say yeah. So with the new DLC, like yeah, the primary focus is you play as Yuffie, which also, if I even remember from my original playthrough, I don't even think I unlocked her because isn't she an optional character? Yeah. So in the original playthrough, I didn't even unlock her. I like maybe briefly saw her or something like that. But in this, it's purely you play as Yuffie and you have your partner who can like join you in battle, but you can't play as him. I forget his name.
Sunon.
So something like that. So, but yeah, it's all Yuffie. But they do, after you finish her part, they do go back to the main crew again briefly for a cutscene that says like what's coming next.
I love that part more. That was my favorite part of it.
Just that last cutscene.
Yeah. No, I love them just chatting because I love that group of characters. I love them interacting with each other. I would have loved if the first hour of part 2 and just walking.
Yeah, just like building the characters. Yeah,
just because some character development between them, but you can just do a lot more then. Sort of like the last disc of Shenmue 2, where you're just walking the Guilin. Have that because it just kept skipping about where it was like, oh, now they're in a car, now they're doing this, now they're doing that. But I just love those characters interacting because I also enjoy them more than Yuffie herself as well.
My name is Yuffie, materia hunter and elite special forces operative for the new Wutai government.
It seems weird because they ended the first game and sort of saying like, oh, we're going in a different direction. And then the end of the DLC is like carrying on the story of the original.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like they want to have their cake and eat it too. I don't think they even know what they're doing.
What do we do now? What do you mean?
Well, this is it. Is like for years, Square Enix have been like, oh, let's make 313 games. Let's make Final Fantasy 15. We're doing a mobile spin-off and a movie and stuff like that.
Right.
And everyone was like, stop it. We just want a game. Yep. And they went, okay, here's Final Fantasy VII Remake. And we went, thank you. And then they went, here's part 2. Here's a mobile spin-off. Also, we're remaking it again on mobile. Yeah. And we're like, did you learn nothing? And they go, no.
Not at all. Yeah, because they did recently, they did announce some of those kind of mobile side stories or remake type of things. Or there's like a Battle Royale type game or some shit coming out now. And it's like, come on, guys, please stop.
This is a big world.
Yeah.
You could have her in Midgard doing something and it not be like, oh, she infiltrates the Shinra building.
Yeah.
I feel like the reason they did that is because they had a lot of reused assets.
Probably.
Other than some boss fights, she pretty much fights the same people. Also seemed like a way to in some of the weird lore from like Dojo Cerberus and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Which I
in general, it does sound like they are trying to combine all of the extended lore into this remake timeline. Is what it sounds like.
yeah, but none of this stuff was in the original.
Well,
This
that's
is all new. But
yeah.
this is all new stuff. That's what's weird.
Oh,
They want to they bring in all these characters in, but these characters are not doing stuff that they did in the original games. This is all new with the same characters. Again, going forward, it just sort of throws everything in the air as to how are you going to make this all come together at the end. Also, that guy Sonon, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Walk Hard. It's like a parody of like Walk the Line and like music biopics.
Oh, with John C. Reilly. I remember
Yeah.
hearing about it. I never watched it, but I know what you're talking about now.
So it opens with him and his like brother living on a farm, and they're like, "Today's going to be the best day ever. No one's going to die." And what happens?
Yeah.
He gets cut in half.
Sounds like a
And
great
it's
movie.
like that guy with just that character the entire time.
Yeah.
You just knew he was going to die.
Mm.
There's nothing I won't do in this long, long life of mine.
My favorite thing about when you go back to the slums
Mhm.
and is everyone's just talking about Cloud after only meeting him for an hour once.
Right? Yeah, he's like their messiah now.
Yeah, there's a guy like, oh, I wish we had that guy with the big sword back to take care of the rats. And you're like, dude, you've been banging on about him for a week. He's gone. Get
Yeah.
over it.
Like, what is this?
He helped you once. Like, you dealt with the rats before.
The rats will now thrive as a kingdom now.
And then you go down the road and there's another guy like, oh, I wish I could had someone to make deliveries. Like that guy with a sword who helped me last week.
Get over him. Oh my gosh. But yeah, and then I guess coming back to my comment about the Crisis Core and Zack stuff. So then that was the other like there was the cutscene once you beat it where it's the old gang again, just talking for a little bit. But then I think after that was that brief like next cutscene where with Zack again, right? Where he like goes back.
This is what's annoying is I just don't feel like they even know what's really happening themselves.
Right, because they open the door and there's like people being hurt from the shit falling down or something.
That was my guess. This is it. There's being vague with an idea of something that's gonna pay off later. I feel like certain things can get away with it. Final Fantasy is not one of those series. Watch Twin Peaks because you're like, oh, like mysteries unraveling
Right.
slowly, and you're getting closer. You're getting closer.
Yeah.
You watch Lost for that reason. Final Fantasy is not a plot twist.
Right. This is
Mystery.
suspense thriller. Like, what is this?
No. This is it's perfectly fine having story beats that get revealed later on. You're not as smart as you think you are. You've got to know your limits. No, I'm not going to hire David Lynch to write a Marvel movie. Same way I'm not going to get Kevin Feige to make Twin Peaks Season 4.
Yeah, like I'm always well, I should say generally speaking, I'm supportive of taking certain properties and maybe expanding them a little bit or maybe experimenting a little bit. But yeah, when it starts like at that, like if you're going to experiment that much, have a different property, like try a different story or do something separate. Like don't mess with an existing timeline so much that it becomes unrecognizable, I guess.
Yeah, it's not even that it's unrecognizable. It just feels like they just really want to do something different. They can't. Which, I get it. This is a big project. They're probably going to be working on this for 10 years, and they probably are
Right.
very creative people that
Mhm.
don't want to be remaking the same thing for the next 10 years of their life.
Well, so really quick though, out of curiosity, if they just made a 1-for-1 modern remake, would you be happy?
They promised me and what I got excited about.
Okay.
Even one that I didn't mind that they expanded on certain parts. Like, there was the part where you go to Jesse's parents' house.
Sure.
I thought that was great. And that's not in the original. I feel like I could have gone in with a pair of scissors and cut certain parts of the game out,
Yeah.
and it would have come out a lot better. Would I have minded if they changed bits here and there? No. I don't like when people tell you, oh, that game you loved 20 years ago shouldn't have ended like that. It was wrong. We're going to fix it.
So do you feel that way, kind of almost a parallel when directors come out with like director's cuts or like recut versions? Like Francis Ford Coppola apparently has just become a meme, I feel like, because he did it with Apocalypse Now, he did it with Godfather 3 recently. Like when stuff like that happens with movies, do you think that's a good idea?
There's a difference there though, because a director's cut normally adds a few scenes, some scenes out. It's not like they change the entire story, look into the camera and go, this is bad.
What about Blade Runner? They did, like, I feel like Blade Runner is almost like one of the worst times where there's like 5 different cuts and they actually does change, at least to some extent, the interpretation a little bit.
Ridley Scott just needs to make up his fucking mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. But I guess maybe another difference is the current director, is it Nomura, is that what you said? Yeah, so I mean, he didn't make the original one, right? Or did he?
No, he was a character designer.
Right. Okay. So I mean, he was involved, sure, but this wasn't necessarily his baby, so to speak, to begin with either. So it's also another level of like, at least with the movies, generally speaking, they're like recutting their own movie. But with this case, he's like recutting someone else's story.
Well, the
almost.
original writers are still involved as well.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And apparently the writers took, because a lot of people straight away, as soon as all this stuff happened, was like, typical Nomura, and then the writers came out and were like, I'll fall on that sword, that was my idea.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. Well, that's good then.
It's just weird. It's just weird. Why say you're going to remake your game but not remake it?
Because, I mean, honestly, money. I'm sorry, in the sense of like, it's easy money. They know people are going to buy this.
Right, but here's the thing, right? Do you think this would have sold one less or one more copy if ghosts weren't in it?
No.
Jinkies.
I guess they just didn't want to do the same thing twice, and they thought, well, we got to reinvent ourselves, which in some cases that can be a good thing, but in this case, it's one of those things where it's such a beloved property that they didn't have to do that.
So I don't know, you know Japanese media better than I do.
Mhm.
The impression I have always got is that they don't have the same attachment we do to like characters and stories.
Mhm.
They're a lot more willing to experiment and throw things at the wall and see what sticks, even if it results in something bad in the meantime. Yeah, we're fans of Yakuza, where from one game to the next, Kiryu can be like, oh, I've abandoned all my values, and now my daughter, who was like very timid, is now a K-pop star.
Right. Super
and then-
normal things.
Yeah. But then even on Final Fantasy X,
Mhm.
you have Yuna, who's one of the main characters in that game. She's like a timid girl.
Mhm.
She's like, I think she's 16 or 17, very forward thinking, like, you've got to do this to help people, very unselfish person.
Yeah.
Seems very innocent, aware of the world as a whole, is very fascinated by everything. And then you get the Final Fantasy X 2, and it opens with her singing in a band in front of 100,000 people. And then getting into a gun shootout.
I mean, you could see the A to B connection. It's so easy to make.
Yeah. I just get the feeling that Japan are like, oh, this would be a cool idea.
Mhm.
They don't have that same attachment we do. Like, if me and you sat down and were like, oh, we're gonna make Casablanca 2, but he's no longer like very negative outlook wood guy. He has ambitions of being a drummer in a rock band. I think me and you would go, actually, this doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, wait a minute. Hold on. You almost had me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. You could tell there's that respect for the source material. I mean, especially given what you just said with the writers being, similar to. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, it's probably a combination of factors, but like, I think. I have to imagine the writers would probably also just get bored if they were to just themselves. Maybe it was just completely their decision, and they said like, "Look, we just want to spice it up a little bit and try something different," and maybe it just wasn't the best decision. Like they may have had like intentions from the beginning, but that's not necessarily what people were hoping for. Which you could also have the argument, and once again, David Lynch, freaking with Twin Peaks season 3, he pretty much was like, I don't give a shit what you want for season 3. I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah, but like I feel like 3 It's a continuation of the original.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about it, it is, but it's. I mean, I gotta admit, I was watching it, and it took me a couple episodes of me going, "What the fuck am I watching? Like, how does this in
Mhm.
any capacity relate to what I was watching from the previous seasons?" But yeah, I mean, you have to give it time. So I would like to hope, especially with these remakes, it's a situation where if we give it time and obviously see the next parts, it will make sense. But maybe that's just too hopeful. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what's difficult as well is the medium that we're playing it on. With a TV show, generally, they can leave you on a cliffhanger because in 9 months' time they're going to pick it up again.
Right.
For the most part. So get cancelled or something.
Yeah.
But with a video, we don't know when we're getting the next part. Could change director. Like, that's the thing. I just don't feel like there's a vision there. I actually thought about this the other day. Like, when they were walking to Calm, and I don't know, well, you remember the original, but that's where he tells the flashback story about
Mm-hmm.
Sephiroth
Yeah.
in Nibelheim.
Mm-hmm.
And thought, I don't think the next game we get is Remake Part 2.
Okay.
I think it's going to be sort of like a Spider-Man Miles Morales situation. You know, like a shorter,
Yeah.
in the 15-hour game.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be that flashback story.
Oh, just purely that.
And then, like, a year or two later, we'll get Part 2.
That would be really cool, actually. I think that would be neat. I mean, assuming they don't, like, continue to go insane off the rails with the story compared to the original, at least. I think that would be a neat way to do it, for sure.
I'd be behind that, because I really enjoyed, like, the getting a because me and you, we're getting older. Don't have time for 80-hour games
Yeah,
anymore.
I can't do that shit anymore.
I got jobs, I got bills. They get angry if I don't pay them. The thing that's annoying is you just know now it's not going to be a straight remake, no matter what they say, no matter what they show in trailers.
Well, how could they, even if they wanted to go back to the normal story, like, how can they undo what they've already shown at the end of this first remake?
Exactly. It's like you literally were doing the thing where you like almost fight God, right?
Right, yeah, right. Yeah, that's I will say that that is a good criticism, because granted, that is kind of the meme of any JRPG. You start off saving a cat and you fight like God himself by the end, but like they brought that fight way too soon in the overall story, right?
And it sort of came out of nowhere because at one point you're fighting roof on a roof, one guy with a gun, right?
Right.
And the next, the guy's throwing buildings at me.
Right, and you don't. Sephiroth doesn't even, if I remember, he doesn't really show up at that point in the game, does he? In the original, or does he?
No, I believe the first time you really see him is in the flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about what happened.
Yeah.
You hear about him before, and like you see the president dead, and they're like, Sephiroth was here, just missed him.
Yeah, right.
He went out that door. Silver hair. You know.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
tough because I'm sure people, even if they followed the original story, people probably would have died to see him in this game, even though he didn't technically appear in the original. So like they probably, I feel like they almost had their hands tied a little bit, or we got to shove him in this game somehow. But I think the way they did it was maybe a little too much too soon.
Yeah, it's the need for a boss fight at the end of the game.
Right.
They won't. Yeah, like, would you have cared if it had just ended?
No, but that's all. And granted, this could be its own discussion separate from this, but I hate the video game trope of a video game ending with some mega battle for the sake of having it. Like, I hate that. There's no reason that a game has to end that way, and so this for sure it seems like a case of that.
No, it's the convention. It's the idea of conventions that you have to
Yeah.
do. That you have to end it like that. No, you don't.
Right.
Who would have cared? There would have been like 3 people online who went, "Oh, why did it end that way?" And then they would have bought the next one anyway. Because
Well, yeah, exactly.
have them walking out. That's it.
Yeah, I would have.
Sunset.
Yeah, I would have preferred like not emotional, but like, yeah, just an interesting revelation or just a conversation of them like going out and then just fading to black or something. Like I would have been fine with that.
So the legend of someone generally a lot more impressive than the person themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
How much more impactful is it? Like you're talking to soldiers in the Shimmer building, and they're like, the guy who's obviously lying, like, "Oh, I saw him cut a truck in half with his sword." Like, you know,
Right.
Like, And then the other guy again, yeah, well, I saw him like battle a 12-foot snake on his own with his bare hands and stuff like that. And then you're like, who is this guy they're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, because like I've met people before where they're like, someone would tell me like, oh yeah, you got in a fight in a pub with 6 people and the fists were bouncing off him, and you're like, oh wow, and then you meet him and he's like 5'8",
Right.
like really impressive, and you're like, oh okay.
Exactly. Yeah, his reputation definitely could have preceded him, and I think it would have been more impactful. And I mean, visually, the fight was like cool. Like, yeah, it looked really neat, but it was.
Did it though? For me, it was just a lot of brown and stuff being thrown around.
Well, granted. I mean, it's been a while since I finished the main game itself, since it was, gosh, almost a year ago at this point. But like, you go into that realm, and then there's like weird cosmic shit going on. I don't know. I could be just misremembering it. Yeah, I don't know.
How did you find Fort Condor?
Wait, sorry. Remind me again.
Fort Condor, the board game that you play in the DLC.
I think I did the one tutorial thing when you talk to the dude like in the chair, and then I never touched it again.
You see, what really annoyed me was they were like, "Oh yeah, this is great," and everyone was like, "Do you want to play a game?" And I'm like, "Let me back to you."
Yeah,
we'll be back. I'm here for the story right now, though. Like, we'll be back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else, then you have like the kid who's like, "Oh, my cat's missing." I'm like, "I'll be back. I will look for the cat. I want to do the other stuff first, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Then I left. You go to the Shinra building, you do all that stuff, the end, and then I'm like, right, okay, I've completed it. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna save the cat. I'm gonna play Full Condor. I'm gonna do all this stuff. And it was like, you have to start from the very beginning of the chapter and do the tutorial again. And I was like, I can just turn this off.
Nope. And that was, wait, was that in the original or no? I'm guessing that's completely new.
Condor is a place in the original.
Okay.
Where you do a similar sort of mini game.
Okay, got it. So
they sort of expanded the world here, where it's a full board game.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I mean, it was fine. This is just another scenario where I was like, yeah, I just want to do the main story. I don't care that much right now. I'm sure it's fine if you play through it, but I just didn't bother with it, to be honest.
I found the first chapter a lot more engaging than the second chapter. I just felt like in the second chapter, I was just going through metal room to metal room fighting enemies.
Exactly. And like you were saying earlier, like, we've been in the Shinra building before. Would have been nice if they put it in a different setting or something, but
yeah, and even like fun seeing like Scarlet. She's like a good villain.
Yeah, she is neat. I always crack up. Wait, is that the one? Like, she's the lady, like the head lady who's like walking around, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I
blonde with the red dress.
Yeah. I still crack up in the cutscenes where she's sitting down and she has a dude like kneeling in front of her, and she just like puts her legs on him.
Just follows her.
Yeah, and it just follows her around. That cracks me up every time.
Is it also just hilarious that like she looks like Ivanka Trump?
Yeah, a little bit. I can see that.
It's just that how they got this like 20 odd years beforehand. You got the blonde guy in charge.
Mm-hmm. Like, is this a coincidence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screw the Simpsons predicting this stuff.
Yeah, Final Fantasy did it. Oh, goodness.
True predictors.
I guess another thing as far as the remake as a whole, so both the main game and the DLC, I played just on the default play style. I never tried the classic mode. Did you ever try that?
No.
Okay.
Because I know that like that was a mode they just put in there to make certain people that were going to complain online happy.
Yeah, and that's just
not
purely
what they intended.
Right, and that's just purely like it's just turn based, right?
I think it's meant to be like a mix.
Oh, okay.
I've not played, as I said, I've not played it, but I think it's meant to be sort of like a meet in the middle.
Okay, got it. So yeah, I didn't even bother trying it.
If Square Enix ever come across this video, which I doubt they will, all those people that complain online and say they won't play the game if you don't include that, they're going to play the game if you include it.
Exactly. People are going to scream.
Day one as well, when it's the most expensive.
Exactly. Oh, goodness. So yeah, that was good. But I guess another thing, So I mean, even for the main playing it on PS4, I mean, I played it on a PS4 Pro originally, and I mean, it looked great. I mean, I know there were some jokes, especially the door texture meme that came up of like the texture like looking horrible, and then like I will say there was a couple of background images looked a little pixelated, I guess, but for the most part, like I thought it looked fine originally.
Just found that door so fucking weird.
Hmm.
Because why that door as well? The one that's in the middle of like 15 cutscenes as well.
Yeah.
Not a door.
Right.
If you're really that hard up for space, or like, I can't believe they're like, we ain't got time, ship it.
Yeah, leave the door. Fuck it. Yeah, that cracked me up. And I will say, and then the other piece, of course, for PS5 is the fact that you can get a free, if you have the PS4 version, you can get the PS5 version free. Not the DLC, you still have to pay for that, of course, but you get the actual main PS5 version digitally for free. And you can even transfer over your save file, which I did, so that was super easy. And I did play, so that was the other thing. So I played through the PS5 version of the base game a little bit, just like an hour or something like that, just so I could see the differences. And I will say, and granted, this is for PS5 as a whole, the load times are just insane. But like from the moment like you press start to get in the game, it's like a freaking snap of a finger. It's insane. But then it did visually look a little bit better, which was cool to see. But it's not like the original was a shit pile to begin with or anything like that. So
Yeah, I've found that ever since I got a PlayStation 5, I know less about what's going on in the world because I'm no longer waiting for the load by checking my phone.
that's fine. Just constantly looking.
Yeah, I just used to be like, right, I got 60 seconds. Let's see what's happening on Twitter. Who's been cancelled today?
Right. Yeah, this is peak Twitter time.
Yeah, who's everyone angry at? But now it's just like, honestly, it's one of those things that I've stopped noticing
Mhm.
at times how good they are.
Mhm.
And then like I picked up the Switch the other day.
Mhm.
Then you're like, this is ridiculous.
5 seconds. Fuck this.
Yeah, screw you, Animal Crossing villages. You can rot in hell.
Yeah, you can die. I'm not saving any fuckers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part you do get spoiled a little bit, which is funny, but yeah, I mean the game looked amazing to begin with, and then even just playing the new DLC, um, it looked. I don't know if it looks even better than the base game or not, but like maybe I was just it's been a while since I played it, but like I thought it looked fucking incredible.
We've got to a point now where you can't by the naked eye go like, oh yeah, that's so much better.
Right.
They have to do video comparisons right next to it, and you go, oh yeah, that's shadow.
Right.
I see what they did there, but in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter.
Do you think it's bullshit that the DLC wasn't released on PS4?
Yeah, because it's going to be.
I like it like what. Even if they upscale the graphics a little bit, there's no like new features that are impossible to replicate on a PS4.
Well, did you see the trailer for this when they announced it, the remake, Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it's like, oh, fog effects,
Yeah, I did see
and
that.
it was like the train had a bit more fog near it.
Right. This is
I was
this is what people were dying to see.
you glad that you have the power of the PlayStation
Yes.
5 at your hands?
This is the future.
The DLC, enjoyed it. Really was unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yes, I think it was unnecessary as well, but I'm sure people were wanting more, and they probably don't want to wait another like 3 years for another game. But to your point, I think that's actually a really good thought about what could happen as far as something else where they release another like mini episode type of thing before the next full-fledged game. So we'll see.
I think it's a dangerous road and precedent to go down though,
Hmm.
because if you start doing that, you end up with like 10 games,
Hmm.
which is crazy because when you consider there's only been 15 Final Fantasies already.
You'll get more than the main series itself.
Yeah. I really think they bit off more than they can chew here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess to summarize it, on the whole, and I think you said it well. Like 95% of it you liked, and I for me, once again, the story, even I could tell was a little goofy towards the end. But
Hmm.
on the whole, like I did enjoy it. Like I had a good time. I think it was well done. Like as far from like a technical perspective of like this game plays well. It's a fun game. At least I had fun with it. Um, and the story, like for the most part, I was cool with it. Yeah, ending's a little weird, but I don't know.
How do you come away from it though? Because as I said, I love it when I've got the controller in my hand and I'm playing it. I'm having a whale of a time.
Hmm.
I'm getting all nostalgic, and then I talk about it afterwards, and I'm down on it.
Well, like I said, I really don't have the nostalgia for the original, so that really isn't there for me at all.
No, but I mean, like when you talk about it, do you think that's a fantastic game, or are you like, it's all right? Like, oh, this.
I mean, it's certainly a game that I'll remember. Is it a game that I'll ever play again? Mm, probably not. I mean, maybe at some point. Like, and it's not because it was bad, but I, I don't know. I guess I did it and I saw it. I don't know. I don't feel like the biggest need to replay it.
Yeah, what I'm asking isn't even like, would you go back and play it again? It's more just like when you step back and you look at it,
Hmm.
you like that's a great game, or you like that's a good game, or
I think it is a great game. I really do. And I say that because, like I said, the entire time I was playing it, I didn't have like a bad. I can't remember a bad time. Like, yeah, there were maybe some difficult bosses and stuff that I got frustrated, but like that's any game. So, but there wasn't a time that I was like, man, this is a necessarily a drag. Like, I mean, I guess to your point, there were a couple spots where maybe they could have cut a couple hours of content, or like they could have wrapped things up a little bit, but like I don't think at any point I said that it was a bad game. And yeah, there were parts that I preferred more than others, I suppose, but on the whole I thought it was a great game. Yeah, like I did enjoy it. Like it's a game I'll remember for sure. I guess for you, like like would you ever, so one, like, yeah, I guess what's your rating scale, maybe another way of asking, and then two, would you ever go back and
I
replay this?
honestly think it was probably the best game of last year,
Okay.
which is why it's so weird. I get negative when thinking about the story.
Yeah.
I think that the internet needs to come up with a word for something that you enjoy in the moment, but when you talk about it afterwards, it stresses you out, or
Hmm.
you look at it more negatively.
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen movies as well where you're like, oh yeah, like when you're in the theater, you're like, oh yeah, that was all right, and then you like a day or two later, you think about it more, and you're like, oh, like that part was stupid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you get caught up in the emotion of it a little bit.
Yeah, we got to come up with a weird word for that. Post nut gaming or something.
That's a good one. All right, I like that one.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't think anything's gonna ever top the original. I imagine for you, right?
I can sit here and say to you like Final Fantasy IX's a better game. Not
Mm,
my favorite. Well aware, a lot of it is nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses.
mm,
It's one of those things where I think why the original is so loved is because of when it came out.
mhm.
Came out at a time when video games were new and doing new things.
Duke, I'm Jane Biltmore, a member of the Unified Bay Resistance.
When I first started playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think that's why I was so in awe of it at the beginning. Was felt like an old-fashioned game that was doing exciting things, doing things different, even though it wasn't because it's a remake.
Ironic.
Felt like a game. If game had stayed on that track
Mhm,
in the late 90s, early 2000s,
mhm.
if it hadn't become the rocket E3 and
Yeah.
sort of business it did become, it's this weird look at a alternative future.
Mhm.
What if it gaming did stay weird and unique and different?
I guess if for people who haven't played it, would you recommend? How do you recommend to play Final Fantasy VII as far as the original, the spin-offs, this for the remake, DLC? Like, what's your final message?
You play the remake
Mhm.
because you have to play the original to understand the ending of the remake, which I still don't even understand.
Yeah, and if with how many times you've played it, if you still don't understand.
Because as I said, my wife sat there and watched me play the entire game.
Mhm.
She's like, "What's going on?" And even during the DLC, when the character from Dojo Cerberus turned up, she was like, "Who are these people? Why are they doing that? What is going on?" And no, I know who they are. For the
Mhm.
most part, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing or what actually is really happening. You can't just play Final Fantasy VII Remake, and the people that never played it and play it,
Mhm.
if they just carry on that road of only playing the remakes, I think it's going to get even weirder and more bizarre. They're going to get more confused.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I
Yes.
did play the original, and I am still confused. So I feel like people are going to be confused regardless.
Yeah, but if someone's like, "Oh, should I play Final Fantasy VII Remake?" My thing is not until you've played the original,
Okay.
because a remake is heading into sequel territory to me
Right.
more than remake.
Mhm.
Because events of the original game have happened.
Well, either they've happened or they're going to happen. They've happened in a parallel universe. In some respect, they happened somewhere.
Yeah, but you need to have watched. It's sort of like the Loki series that's going on right now.
Yeah.
You can't just watch Loki having only watched the first four movie, even though that is the Loki. That's as far as that version of Loki got.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely some prerequisite material that you need to have. So yeah, and like I mean, I guess to repeat it again, like I'm very much, I agree with you. Like even for someone like me who didn't like, or sorry, who doesn't like JRPG or turn-based JRPG specifically, I'm still glad I played through. And so I guess my advice to people would be, if you're like me and you don't like turn-based, make sure you get the modern versions of these games. Like, and I think they've done this for 7 through 9, if I'm not mistaken, where they've added in like these god
I think
modes,
even
speed,
10,
or even 10. Yeah, exactly. They've ported these to modern consoles in some
12, yeah.
respect. Yeah. So you definitely take advantage of that, and especially like I said, for me, I did it mainly just for the story and to say I've at least experienced it. Did I beat it in the traditional sense? No, but like I'm not fucking keeping a tally on a chalkboard here. Like I don't give a shit about that. I don't have to prove my gamer score to people. I don't give a shit about that.
If you ever become famous on the internet, that will be held against
Yeah, yeah.
you.
Okay, shit. All right. I just ruined my gaming career. Fuck. I was gonna
Yeah,
quit my job tomorrow.
yeah. In
Uh,
12 years, when you're at the Game Awards winning Trending Gamer, they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, he cheated.
Jeff Keighley is gonna be handing me the award and go, wait a minute, fuck you. Taking this back. So yeah, so once again, to sum it up, like I said, I think I will agree with you. Yeah, I think you absolutely have to play the original, but at least my recommendation would be to play it the modern way. I mean, granted, if you like those types of games, then yeah, play it. You can still play it that way on the modern consoles with all the ports. So you don't have to turn those cheats on if you don't want to. But obviously, that will help speed it up a little bit. And kind of get you through the story if that's all you're interested in. But yeah, absolutely. And then as far as the remake goes, yeah, like I said, I had a blast. Highly recommend playing it. If you can get the PS5 version and you have a PS5, I would still recommend playing through the DLC. But you're not. I don't think you're going to be coming away from it blown away by any means.
Say that, and then there's going to be like a major story point in the next one where it's like, oh, do you remember what happened in the Shimmer building basement? You have to play all the. Did you not play the mobile spin off Battle Royale?
Fucking worthless piece of shit. Yeah, I guess actually, okay. I guess we should also mention, or maybe I'll maybe finalize it with that, or the last question for you. Would you recommend people, at the very least, look into any of the spin-off, whether it's the games, movies, at least story synopses, or do you think it's worth it?
Crisis Core, amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
Just Cerberus, not as bad as people say, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's God's gift to Earth.
Yeah.
Advent Children, I really like.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I feel like it's a good series.
Mhm.
Has its low points, but I don't think they're as low as some people make out. But when you're comparing one of the best games of all time to a game that probably got like 6s and 7s and
Right.
stuff when it got reviewed,
Mm-hmm.
of course the internet's going to overreact.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, as far as the main game itself, the original, I mean, it's a piece of gaming history. I feel like if you call yourself any form of some, or I was about to say, if you call yourself a gamer, but I hate saying that. But if at the very least, if you enjoy playing video games,
Is that not on your Tinder profile?
yeah, I'm a top gamer. That's what I tell people. That's my resume. But at the very least, if you have more than a passing interest in games and you like to see the history of things, I think it's a game you can't miss. Just like Ocarina of Time, or any like kind of classic game, you got to check it out for sure. In some capacity, I feel like. And then yeah, like you said, the spin-offs, like if you don't know a whole lot else to do, I suppose, or you have some time to spare and you want to check them out, go for it. But see, they're fun.
Oh, well, this DLC made it sound like Dirge's Cerberus, which about 3 people and their dog played, is going to be like really important.
Yeah, so maybe at least look at a story synopsis.
If you don't have access to a PlayStation 2,
I mean, that's what I did. I looked at some
I connect that.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at some story synopses for some of those spin-offs and stuff. But Advent Children, I mean, you can just rent, on any digital storefront. Like I rented it for like $3 and checked it out one day, so it was fun.
I think it's a bit much to expect the general audience to know characters from that game.
I mean, great, but then again, for someone like me, even though like I said, I watched the story synopses, I don't fucking remember any of them. So they could introduce God knows what, and I would still have no idea if they were from it or not. It doesn't make a difference to me. So I don't know. In some respects, I guess it doesn't matter. But then again, if you are familiar with the material and they introduce someone and they're completely represented differently than how they were originally, it's like, well, what the hell was the point of using them? It's like, just find someone else at that point. So any other parting words of wisdom?
Just fucking remake it.
Wait, can we get a remake of the remake?
Easy.
Jinkies.